He had built the kind of company many founders dream about. A growing team, a respected product, a business people admired from the outside. But behind the success, something was quietly breaking. In 2017, Buffer CEO Joel Gascoigne hit burnout in what he later described as a very big way. And the only way forward was to step away from the company he had built. This is not a story about failure. It is a story about what can happen when care, pressure, responsibility, and identity all become tangled together. Before we go further, a quick note. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you are struggling with burnout, depression, anxiety, or health concerns, please speak with a qualified medical or mental health professional. For a lot of high achievers, burnout does not begin with hating the work. Sometimes it begins with loving the work too much. You believe in the mission. You care about the team. You feel responsible for every problem, every decision, every person depending on you. And slowly, work stops being something you do. It becomes the place where your identity lives. That was part of what made Joel's story so powerful. He was not checked out. He was not lazy. He was deeply invested. But deep investment without recovery can become dangerous. Looking back, Joel traced the beginning of his burnout to the end of 2015. Buffer was entering a long period of change. He and his co-founder were growing apart in their vision for the company. In 2016, financial challenges led to layoffs. Then, in early 2017, Buffer's co-founder and CTO left the company. In his words, it was a lot of change, stress, and loss in a short period of time. And during that time, adrenaline carried him. He knew the company needed stability. He knew the team needed reassurance. He cared about Buffer and the people inside it. So he kept going. After major leadership changes, he spoke individually with more than 80 people in the company. One-on-one. Person after person. Conversation after conversation. It was the kind of leadership that looks admirable from the outside, but it also took enormous energy. By the spring of 2017, the company felt more stable. But that was when something unexpected happened. Once the emergency energy faded, his body and mind seemed to realize what they had just been through. Joel later wrote that the adrenaline had been masking things. Then the burnout hit. He lost motivation. He felt like he had nothing left. He struggled to get up in the morning. He felt emotional and sensitive. He cried often, both alone and with people close to him. This is one of the parts of burnout that people often misunderstand. Burnout is not simply being tired after a long week. Mayo Clinic describes job burnout as work-linked stress that can include physical or emotional exhaustion, feeling empty or powerless, trouble getting started, reduced satisfaction, sleep changes, and physical complaints. In Joel's case, the work still mattered to him, but his ability to access motivation, energy, and emotional steadiness had been worn down. There is another part of this story that matters. Leadership can be lonely. When you are leading a company, people may look to you for certainty, even when you are uncertain. They may expect confidence, even when you are carrying fear. The decisions can affect people's livelihoods, the company's future, and the culture everyone works inside. And when the pressure gets high enough, vulnerability can start to feel risky. That isolation can make burnout harder to notice and harder to talk about. Joel eventually realized he could not lead Buffer well in the state he was in. That realization became the turning point. He decided to take a break from Buffer. He wrote a memo to the team, delegated responsibilities, signed out of Slack, and began leave without a firm return date. That last detail is important. He did not treat recovery like another productivity project. He did not create a complicated plan to optimize every hour of his time off. At first, he did very little. He woke up late, watched YouTube, went climbing with a friend, took long walks. Eventually, he began exercising more and later traveled to learn kite surfing. This was not laziness. This was decompression. When the nervous system has been running on pressure for too long, doing less can feel strangely uncomfortable. But sometimes, doing less is exactly where recovery begins. Burnout is often treated like an individual weakness. But the research tells a more complicated story. Workplace factors like heavy workload, long hours, lack of support, poor work-life balance, and feeling little control can all contribute to burnout risk. And preventing burnout is not only about telling people to meditate or be more positive. A review of burnout intervention programs found that individual strategies can help, especially in the short term. But longer-lasting effects are more likely when personal support is combined with organizational changes. In other words, mindfulness and self-care matter. But they work best when the system around a person also allows recovery, boundaries, and support. That is what makes Joel's story useful. He did not just try to think his way out of burnout. He stepped away. He trusted his team. He started therapy. He reconnected with hobbies. And later, he helped Buffer build more intentional support around time away. The mindset shift here is subtle but powerful. It is not just think positive. It is not manifest your way out of exhaustion. The shift is this: rest is not a reward for finishing everything. Rest is part of what allows you to continue. For high achievers, that can be hard to accept. Because if your value has become tied to output, rest can feel like falling behind. But the body does not care how meaningful your work is if you never let it recover. Joel's recovery included therapy, exercise, long walks, time away from work, and rediscovering hobbies outside Buffer. These things mattered because they helped rebuild a part of life that was not measured by company progress. And that may be one of the most important lessons for anyone who feels consumed by work. You need somewhere for your identity to go when the laptop closes. So what can we take from this story? First, burnout often builds slowly. It can hide behind responsibility, adrenaline, and the belief that you just need to push through one more hard season. Second, caring deeply about your work does not mean sacrificing recovery. In fact, the more responsibility you carry, the more recovery matters. Third, support should not wait until crisis. A therapist, coach, peer group, trusted friend, or honest leadership team can help you notice patterns before they become collapse. Fourth, hobbies are not trivial. They remind your brain and body that achievement is not the only source of meaning. And finally, if you are already burned out, do not turn recovery into another performance. Sometimes the first step is not a perfect plan. Sometimes the first step is permission to stop. Joel Gascoigne's burnout story is not powerful because it is rare. It is powerful because it is recognizable. Many people are building something, leading something, caring for others, or trying to hold everything together while quietly running out of fuel. Burnout is not proof that you are weak. Sometimes it is a signal that a life built around constant output needs more space to breathe. If this story helped you see work, rest, or success differently, subscribe for more real stories and science-backed lessons on mindset, resilience, and well-being.